DeepSeek V4 is trying to make one promise very hard to ignore: frontier-style reasoning, huge context, and open weights in the same family. The headline is not just that DeepSeek is back. The headline is that V4 Pro claims 1.6 trillion total parameters, 49 billion active parameters, and a 1 million token context window. That is the kind of spec sheet that can change how teams think about long documents, code bases, and agent workflows. But the real question is simpler: should you actually build around it yet? Here is the clean version. DeepSeek describes V4 as a preview model family, not just one model. V4 Flash is the smaller mixture of experts option, with 284 billion total parameters and 13 billion active. V4 Pro is the large option, with 1.6 trillion total parameters and 49 billion active. Both support a 1 million token context length, and the model card lists the repository under an MIT license. That matters because this is not just an API story. It is a model availability story. The most important technical claim is not the parameter count. It is efficiency at long context. DeepSeek says V4 combines compressed sparse attention with heavily compressed attention, and that in a 1 million token setting, V4 Pro uses 27% of the single token inference flops and 10% of the KV cache compared with DeepSeek version 3.2. If that holds up in independent testing, the practical impact is obvious. Longer context becomes less of a party trick and more of a deployable workflow feature. A 1 million token window sounds massive, but the value depends on how well the model uses it. For developers, the big use cases are reading large repositories, comparing long contracts, maintaining multi-file agent state, and summarizing deep research folders without aggressive chunking. The caveat is that context size alone does not guarantee better answers. You still have to test retrieval quality, instruction following, latency, and cost on your own data. Long context is a capability. It is not automatically a workflow. On the self-reported base model table, V4 Pro improves over version 3.2 on a lot of knowledge, math, and long context benchmarks. The biggest jump that stands out is Simple QA Verified, where the model card lists version 3.2 base at 28.3, V4 Flash base at 30.1, and V4 Pro base at 55.2. Longbench V2 also moves from 40.2 on version 3.2 base to 51.5 on V4 Pro base. That is promising, but treat the numbers as directional until outside evaluators reproduce them. For coding, the story is strong but not one-dimensional. The model card lists V4 Pro Max at 93.5 on LibCodeBench, and a Codeforces rating of 3206. It also lists strong SWE verified and tool use scores. But the comparison table does not show V4 winning every agentic category. On some software engineering and browsing tasks, other frontier models are still ahead. So the honest takeaway is not that DeepSeek V4 replaces everything. It is that it looks very competitive in coding-heavy workflows, especially if open weights and cost matter. The pricing page is where V4 gets interesting for builders. DeepSeek lists V4 Flash with 1 million context, up to 384,000 output tokens, JSON output, tool calls, and very low listed prices per million tokens. V4 Pro is higher, with a limited time discount shown on the page. The practical read is simple. Flash is the volume and experimentation model. Pro is the model you test when the task needs deeper reasoning or harder coding performance. Always verify current pricing before deployment, because these numbers can change. The teams that should test V4 first are obvious: coding agent builders, document-heavy SaaS teams, research automation workflows, and anyone who wants open-weight optionality instead of being locked into one closed API. If your product depends on strict reliability, regulated data handling, or consistent tool behavior, do not switch blindly. Run a small benchmark suite. Your real prompts, your real documents, your failure cases, and your real latency target. The right question is not whether the model is impressive. It is whether it wins your workload. There are 3 caveats I would keep front and center. First, the model card calls this a preview, so deployment behavior may evolve. Second, the Pro model is enormous, even with sparse activation, so self-hosting is not a casual weekend setup. Third, benchmark tables are not a substitute for independent evals. That does not make the release weak. It just means you should treat it like serious infrastructure, test it, measure it, and compare it against your current stack before committing. My score for DeepSeek V4 is 8.7 out of 10. The specs are genuinely aggressive. Open model availability, 1 million context, strong reported coding results, and pricing that could make large-scale experiments more realistic. The reason it is not a 9+ yet is simple: preview status, self-reported benchmarks, and real deployment questions. If you build AI agents, coding tools, or long document products, put V4 on your test list now. And if you want grounded model reviews like this, subscribe to Fluid Coding and AI.